How you going, guys? Oscar here. Today I want to talk about negative relationships, abusive relationships, relationships we've walked away from but still find it difficult to be completely free of that person. Completely be free of certain emotional patterns, certain thought processes, like a splinter in the back of our brain. We just can't seem to get that person out of our field of energy. Okay, whether it be mental abuse, verbal abuse, whether it be physical abuse, or just an accumulation of negative energy that has led us to a point where we just can't take it anymore, and we know that we have to leave the relationship because it's toxic, it's contaminating our spirit. Okay, but what happens once we let go, we walk away, find the courage? Why do we still find it hard? What triggers certain emotions to come up where we just completely cannot be free and live in the present and embrace that harmony we once felt. So let's just say that I have a relationship and it's very abusive, or let's just say, for example, I am in a relationship and I'm really in love with someone. Okay. Now, it doesn't really necessarily have to be abuse. It just has to be negative. So the example I'm going to use is that, I'm in a relationship and I come home and I find my wife, girlfriend, partner cheating on me. Okay? I'm going to use this as an example. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be cheating. It can be just, any type of, experience or circumstance that just got you to a point where you just said enough. Okay? And then when I come home, it's just a very traumatic experience. My heart is just shattered, my jaw's to the floor, I'm down on my knees. I mean, it's terrible, terrible. Anyone that's ever gone through that experience. Now, let's fast forward to 2, 3 weeks later, we've broken up. Now, it's going to be very hard for me to let go of that experience. I'm probably going to be reliving that experience over and over and over again. I'm going to be talking about it. I'm probably going to be slandering her name and saying she's like this, she did that, I can't believe this. And I'm going to be validating these emotions that I'm reliving over and over again. So let's dissect it. Now, first thing you got to understand is the subconscious mind, okay? The body is the unconscious mind. Doesn't care what's right or wrong, doesn't care what's good or bad. It just understands programming. So now, you know, I'm in the present moment 3, 4 weeks later after what's happened, and I've been reliving that moment over and over again. So, really, on a biochemical level, because that's what we are driven by our chemicals and hormones, it reflects all our mood swings. Um, what's happening is that I am reinforcing that memory to stay alive within my field, within my subconscious mind, within my memories. And the more I rehearse it over and over again, the more I think of it, the more I feel it, the more I curse about it, the more I talk about it. What's really happening? The more I am validating these emotions, the more I am memorizing, and that's the key word here is memorizing an internal chemistry, a biochemical, a biochemical program that reflects that memory. So what I mean by a biochemical program is that whenever I'm having these memories or I'm reliving the moment, the chemicals and hormones that reflect the rehearsal of that memory is going to be ultimately memorized within my system, within my subconscious mind. Okay, so it's just like learning how to play an instrument, for example, or reading a book over and over again, or memorizing a paragraph. When the brain learns something new, it makes a new synaptic connection, and the more times you do it, the more stronger that synaptic connection is. So now, if I'm rehearsing a certain moment over and over again, I am now creating such a strong connection with that memory that the emotions and chemicals that come with that memory become very, very strong and dominant. to the point where I have memorized it. I no longer have to think about that memory anymore because I am that memory. Okay? So you go from having a certain mood, you go to work after this has happened, everyone's going to be like, oh, don't talk to Oscar, he's going for a bad breakup, going for the bad breakup. And if I don't really get over it or rise above it, then it goes from being a mood to a temperament. All of a sudden, I may hate women, and I'm always cursing, or I'm always comparing every other girl to, my ex-wife, for example. And it goes from having a temperament, like, to then being a part of your personality. I just become negative and bitter, and that's what programming is. So we may have walked away from an abusive relationship. May have walked away from a negative relationship, but if we mentally rehearse, or if we keep reliving those emotions or the memory over and over again, you just have to think about it like learning how to drive a car, learning how to play an instrument, learning or memorizing a paragraph. Okay? Once your brain learns it, it's very hard or difficult, not impossible, to unlearn it because the chemistry. Okay, let's talk on a cellular level. Now, each time you have a thought, you release a chemical. So if you're having positive thoughts, you're releasing positive chemicals in your brain that reflect that thought. If you're having a negative thought, you release negative chemicals. Now, these chemicals signal the body to feel exactly like the way you're thinking. So if I wake up and I start to think insecure, I look in the mirror and go, oh my God, I'm so fat. Oh my God, I'm so ugly. Oh my God. I just start being really negative. I'm having negative chemicals in my brain that reflect that thought process. Then I start to feel insecure. Now, as soon as I start to feel insecure, I start to think insecure, then I start to feel insecure. And this becomes a vicious cycle. So the mind and body are always in communication with one another, modifying each other's receptor sites to reflect what one another is sending out. So thinking to feeling, feeling to thinking, and this can go on for days, weeks, and this is when the body starts to learn a habit. And it's the same thing when, you know, if you've ever came across someone who's a silly example, someone biting their nails. They bite it 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, and they say around after 21 days, if they're on the dinner table and you tell them to stop biting their nails, what's going to happen 5 minutes later? That habit, right? Even though they know not to bite their nails, it's just unconsciously they're going to be biting their nails, and this is how the body works. Okay, we can understand the principles just from the smallest examples to bigger examples of behavior or certain personality traits. Now, once I start to rehearse over and over again, I start to memorize. I start to memorize an internal chemistry that reflects that memory. Now, this ultimately holds me back from me being my full potential, me being in the moment. So now, you know, if I am, like going to work or someone says something or I watch something that reminds me of that person, those emotions are going to come up. I'm going to be filled with negativity. That memory that I've rehearsed, that I've strengthened so much within a neurological level, is now going to project the emotions that I've felt and I have been feeling all the times that I've been rehearsing after the event. So it might be 6 months into the future. You see someone, you hear something, any type of pattern that is recognized as the brain that is associated with the memory might be, I'll use my example again, it's the same name. Someone says a name that is exactly the same as my wife. Might be a certain dress, a certain perfume, might be a certain restaurant we used to eat at. You understand my point. That is going to now be processed, associated. So I identify, associate, then my body is going to respond. And it responds by projecting that memory, the emotions, the chemicals, the hormones that I've been reliving back into the present moment, and I get taken over, and I might completely have a mood swing. It might ruin my whole night. It just depends on your ability to handle these emotions. Okay, so I hope you guys are starting to get, what I'm trying to express here. Now, how do we rise above this? How do we reprogram? How do we now let go of these emotional patterns, these negative thought processes? What happens now if there's a trigger and these emotions come up? And look, you might, and Eckhart Tolle, explains this perfectly when he talks about the pain body. The pain body is an accumulation of pain that one has experienced, like residue from the past, residue from moments that you've had with people, that you've experienced pain, negativity, disappointment, betrayal, any type of negative emotion that you haven't really dealt with, you've forgotten about, you've suppressed, and now they accumulate and they become one big energy field, a negative energy field. And then when there is a trigger, that energy field that lays dormant will now take over you. You'll be highly unconscious and it will want to recharge. Okay, and this is a great way of understanding emotional patterns. It's a great way, great metaphor. So basically, okay, pain body. Now, if if you meet someone and they seem like a great person at the start, you really get along with them, and it's all happening, and you guys, end up getting married. Now, after the honeymoon period, all of a sudden the person becomes abusive. They're having mood swings. They can become a completely different person. You're going, what the heck is going on? This is not the person I married. Now, more likely than none, it's because their pain body, which was dormant throughout the whole initial honeymoon period when you guys hooked up, has now been triggered. They're not putting on that front anymore because they're very comfortable. And when you're comfortable with someone, that's when the pain body can just rise above, because you're not using presence or consciousness to make an effort to really be the best person you can be. That guard's gone down. You've won that person over. You've slept in every position. You've spoken about everything, and now it's comfortability. Pain body takes over, and you're thinking, "Who the hell is this person? What's going on there?" So basically, you know, when you have suppression, okay, negative emotions that you've suppressed from abusive relationships, now when they're triggered, they might be triggered from a certain word, certain action you might do, or your partner might do something to you that is so insignificant, but it causes you to act out or lash out in rage. And then your partner might, or it might be even you. This might even, you might even do this. You might sit there in a really foul mood for days or hours, or just weeks even, in some extreme examples. And even though that action or that word or that fight was so insignificant, you don't know how to break that mood. And then it just gets worse from there, because that trigger has triggered the entity called the pain body to rise up to the surface. And then once it rises up to the surface, the person becomes highly unconscious, and that energy field is the accumulation of all the pain, betrayal, disappointment, whatnot you've experienced. It becomes one big energy field, has now taken over your body, and has to be fed, because the only way it can survive within your own energy field is through stimulation, through attention, through energy. So once it takes over you and you start becoming abusive, or your partner starts becoming abusive, you start yelling, you start, using swear words, your partner is now going to lash back at you unless they're highly aware and present. And then that energy field gets fed. And it's a very negative thing. It's highly unconscious. Okay, you become highly unconscious, and then once it's fed, it's recharged, the person will calm down, or they'll start to cry to release those emotions, because once you've been taken over, your blood starts to boil up, and you've got to project that energy out. Because unless you're highly conscious, or you're a practitioner of meditation, or high levels of yoga, and I'm not talking yoga just doing the stretches, like real proper authentic yogis, the 8 limbs of yoga. If you ever want to really get into yoga, I advise you study the 8 limbs. Anyway, um, unless you have really dealt with those emotions, once you become highly unconscious, you've got to project that energy out. Once that energy is projected out, whether it be through anger or lashing out on someone, whether it be through crying, playing the victim, suffering, oh my God, poor me, cry, 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 or whether it be just through physical violence. Once that energy field is out, you'll see a complete mood swing in that person, and they'll go back to their normal state or their present state, and it's like, who are you? What happened? And this is the same level where schizophrenia comes from. It's that obviously it's a very extreme example, but it depends on how much control you have of it. It's like in Native Indians they call it the good wolf, bad wolf. Which one do you feed? But on a biochemical level, there are hormones, there are chemicals that you start to program within your own body that represent these moods. Or you can look at it on an energy level. There's a pain body that has been fed through negativity that has been kept alive within you. That's why people with anger problems, people that are very abusive or negative, the pain body is very dominant. It's very dominant in them. It's heavy. You can see it in their face. They're always negative. They're complaining because they fed it. They fed it so much that it wants to get fed all the time. It's almost like a snowball or something small, and then the more you feed it, the more negativity you give it, the more attention you give this negative entity, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until it completely takes over you. Have you ever seen a crazy person on the street that's talking out loud, really negative? That's no different to someone that is talking in their head really negative, but they have gotten to the point where they just verbalize it. They don't care. That's someone that's completely been taken over. Or you might know someone that just is very negative, complains all the time. It's because they got a very heavy pain body, but also they have programmed, rehearsed so much repetition, repetition through the law of repetition that they no longer have a mood, they no longer have a temperament, they are the emotions they have relived. And you ring that person up, hey, Joe, we're all going to the movies or we're all going to go get something to eat. Do you want to come? Oh, no, guys, I'm just going to stay in tonight. I'm not interested. What he's really trying to say is, I'm so addicted to these negative emotions, I don't know how to break free, that I'm just going to sit here and dwell because I cannot interact on a positive level. And once people get into this state, they can become jealous, they become bitter, they're not happy for you because they need more negativity to validate their sense of self. So, I mean, it does get very intricate. It's more than positive thinking. You can have a conversation with a person like this and say, hey, you've got to change and you've got to be like this and, you've got to be more positive. But you know what? They've got years, months of heavy programming. So the body is feeling one way, the mind's thinking another way. And and everyone knows that once your body is lazy, it's really hard to get motivated. Once your body is feeling sad, it's really hard to become happy. It becomes very difficult. And the more you're programmed, that's receptors that have modified their cells to be customized to a certain chemical. Once your brain releases a chemical, it goes like into all these receptors, whether it be on a neurological level, on a biological level. The receptor sites, it's almost like, think about a key going into a door, it turns. Now, these chemicals going to your receptor sites over and over again, and these chemicals represent a negative emotion. Now, the receptor sites, they split over a certain amount of time and they have sister cells. Now, these sister cells are like duplicates of the cell that has been so customized to receiving negative emotions that their receptor sites, they're born with just receptors that only take negative emotions. So if you get a key that's positive and try to turn it, it won't work. It takes so much consistency and perseverance and commitment and repetition to reprogram now. You've got to completely reprogram. And I'll talk about reprogramming in another video, but I just wanted you guys to understand that how intricate and how deep, abusive relationships, negative thinking, just negative experiences, just anything that is of low vibration, how it affects you on a neurological level, how it affects you on a biological level, and how it affects you on an energy level. And unless you become aware and educate yourself on how this works, then you're never going to come into alignment with the present moment. You're never going to come into alignment with your inner core, you're never going to come into alignment with harmony, synchronicity with your environment, with yourself. Now, outflow equals inflow. So what you put out there, you get back. So now, not only is your state, because remember, you're an energy field, you have an aura, there's chi running through your body. Okay, your energy field is low vibration now. So you're going out into this electromagnetic world because everything is EM, and that's another subject. You're this energy field going out into more energy, and once you start vibrating on a low vibration, what happens? Your interactions are going to be low vibrations. Your manifestations are going to be low vibration. The law of attraction, the law of intention, what you pull, the gravitational pull into your field is going to be low vibration because light attracts light. Okay? And that's pretty much where I'm going to end it off today. Thanks for listening.